I think I want the engineer to roll clip number 1 where Stephen Scalise is on one of the, if you will, Trump TV programs with host Ed Henry, who is not necessarily he's not a Tucker Carlson or a Sean Hannity or Lori Ingram or Janine Pirro, but I mean, he is with Fox. But let's look at some of the things that he said. And Mr. Engineer, leave my mic open because I want you to see the universe. Some of you probably don't watch Fox, and you need to see how the universe of thinking is going on over at Fox right now regarding what Tribulation Trump is doing and how Fox is spinning it. Roll clip number 1, Mr. Engineer.
This is an abuse of power that the president is again trying to manipulate federal law enforcement to serve his political interest. And the president is what he is. He thinks he's above the law. This all must be investigated.
Something egregious like this demands that the Inspector General investigate.
Abuse of power, investigating political opponents. No, Democrats are not talking about the impeachment trial. Those latest comments are in reference to the Roger Stone sentencing, with a growing number of Democrats now insisting the president tried to improperly influence it. Now reports are emerging that some of those Democrats are going so far as to consider yet another investigation, maybe even another impeachment. Joining me now, House Minority Whip, Congressman Steve Scalise. Congressman, appreciate you coming in tonight.
Great to be with you, Ed. Thanks.
During the impeachment trial, you and other Republican leaders said, you know what, no matter what happens here, even if there's an acquittal, it's going to go on and on beyond the impeachment trial, but maybe even beyond the next election.
Now, hold on just a second.
Yeah, you know,
I want, Ed Henry is setting this up. And of course, there is some sense that Pelosi and Schumer and the Dems are consistently talking about, the impeachment of Trump or in some way investigating him. But the problem is that Ed Henry refuses to preface or predicate this piece by saying Trump is always doing something every day. There's something new, criminal or illegal or outrageous or pathological or degenerate that he's doing every day. So what do you expect people to do? Just sit by and say and do nothing? And watch Ed Scalise or Steve Scalise. It is really a very dangerous time in America that people are so dishonest regarding dishonesty in Tribulation Trump. But go ahead, Mr. Engineer, roll it, let it roll.
They are the party of impeachment. The Democrats have been talking about this since the day that the president and Melania Trump came down that escalator. They said they would impeach him. They didn't think he would get elected president. They tried to stop him. If you look, the FBI had people embedded within the FBI, trying to stop him from getting elected. That's where the investigation, by the way, ought to be. If Pelosi really cared about uncovering anything, the fact that you had an agency, and it was only people, a small group of people there that were abusing their power. But why aren't they looking into that? That concerns me and a lot of people. We don't want that to happen again to any president, whether it's 2020 election or ever again. But then you look at real abuse of power. In fact, it was one of the Democrats' star witnesses, Professor Turley, who said the real abuse of power is Democrats impeaching a president with no crime. There was no crime. They looked for a crime. They hoped for a crime because they disliked this president. And you can see that with Speaker Pelosi. She's made it very personal. It's a vendetta. That's the abuse of power, what Speaker Pelosi is doing, wasting Congress's time, not working with Republicans and the president to lower drug prices or to get an infrastructure package, but instead to go after the president every single day because she doesn't agree with the 2016 election results.
And now Speaker Pelosi may be going further. Remember when she said he'll be impeached forever? Now she's suggesting he was never acquitted. Watch.
There was no acquittal. You can't have an acquittal unless you have a trial. And you can have a trial when you have witnesses and documents. So he can say he's acquitted, and the headlines can say acquitted. But he's impeached forever, branded with that, and not vindicated.
Now, Democrats spent all this time earlier in the administration saying this president's about alternative facts, he's not telling the truth. And now you have the Speaker of the House claiming to the American people there was no trial, there was no acquittal.
It's really sad when you watch it. It's like, again, the personal vendetta comes out, that we should be putting our personal differences on the side. You fight passionately for the things you believe in, but you shouldn't make things personal. And clearly she's crossed that line. But again, the president was acquitted for life. Go look at the vote. It really did happen. But ultimately, It was her case. You know, it was the House case, the witnesses they brought. They didn't let us bring our own witnesses, by the way, Ed. We had a list of witnesses. We were guaranteed under House rules an entire day of hearings for the minority, and Speaker Pelosi shredded that rule like she ripped the State of the Union address. That's how little respect she had for witnesses being brought in the House. And then they turns out they didn't make their case. The public didn't buy it because they saw through that this was a personal vendetta. There was no crime. And instead of just recognizing and moving on, they talk about impeachment again because it's all they've got. Look, there's an election coming up in a few months. The people of this country will decide. I know they're disappointed in their field. You can see it. They know that no matter who comes out in that socialist Democrat primary, nobody's excited about the field. I was in Iowa. I was in New Hampshire. The Trump voters are passionately excited, and frankly, in larger numbers than we've ever seen. And the Democrat side is depressed. But you don't just keep harassing the president because you're disappointed in your own presidential field.
But Congressman, I hear you also saying on the impeachment question, it's time to turn the page, it's time to come together. But one of those votes for acquittal was from Republican Susan Collins, who you know said that she believed the president had learned a lesson from the impeachment drama. And what we started this segment was talking about the new Democratic investigations on Roger Stone and whether the president intervened. On the question of learning anything, do you really think the president learned anything from that drama?
Well, I think the president learned just how corrupt some people in the deep state are. I mean, you look at some of these people literally within federal agencies like the FBI abusing their power to try to stop him from getting elected. That ought to frighten every American,
but
Republican or Democrat. That's what we should be concerned about.
But what about his own behavior, though? I get what you're saying about the deep state, and that's been out there, and that's going to continue to be questioned. But what about his own actions?
And that's the area. That's the area that I think that that Ed Henry is at least trying to be fair and balanced about this, and Steve Scalise is just, painting everything with a broad brush. That the Dems, that Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they're all after him. They won't let him rest. He's, one thing after the other. But Ed Henry is trying to say, but you're not acknowledging the fact, and even he could acknowledge it. Steve Scalise could acknowledge it on this wise. One is that Trump is an unusual character. He's an unusual president. I mean, we've just never had anybody like him. And though I think he's vile, a degenerate, a con man, a liar, not everybody has to agree with that. But what we all do agree with it, that he breaks traditional norms. He does not go by normal things. 9 people that have been a part of his initial cabinet, from Paul Manafort to Roger Stone to a bunch of other people, either have been indicted criminally or are in jail or serving time or have pleaded guilty. And he's gone through 3 White House chief of staff. He's just an unusual person. He hobnobs with people like Kim Jong-un, calls him his friend, that they're in love. He violates European relations in NATO. And he uses his own golf courses and country clubs for his places that the government has to pay for. He is different. And as a result of that, some of those things may cross the line of being legal and illegal. And Trump does them every day. So what are the lawmakers supposed to do? Scalise, pardon me. What are the lawmakers supposed to do? They're supposed to just ignore it. So, well, let's let him keep doing what he's doing. Well, I think that's what Tribulation Trump thinks. He's the president, and he can do just whatever the hell he wants to do. He feels under Article 2 that he can do exactly what he wants to do, and there are no constraints, there are no laws. He can't be investigated, he can't be arrested, he can't be held accountable. But that is not true. That our Constitution does not provide for that. Only kings have that kind of authority, and we don't have a king. We're supposed to have a president. But if Obama had behaved this way, those Republicans, their hair would be on fire. They'd be running around like, if Obama had done just one scintilla of some of the things that Tribulation Trump has done. Roll the last, we'll move on. Anything.
Well, look, the president made it very clear when you look at the Zelensky phone call, and ultimately that's what this was about. It was a call between 2 people. President Trump and President Zelensky. Both people have been asked about this call multiple times and said it was a great call. The president talked about it as a perfect call. Zelensky appreciated President Trump's help in things like selling the Javelin missiles to defend themselves against Russia, which, by the way, President Obama and Joe Biden wouldn't do. They wouldn't help the Ukraine stand up to Russia. So Zelensky was very fine with the call. In fact, thanked President Trump for the help that he's given Ukraine. I wish President Obama had done that much. But again, the two people on the call both said it was a fine call, and yet their answer was to impeach the president because they're afraid he's going to win again in 2020.
I heard someone say the other day, of all the people, all the things they've heard about phone calls, they've never heard anybody refer to a phone call as a perfect phone call. And that's what Trump said the phone call was, what Zelensky was a perfect phone call. It was not. It was anything but that. And of course, Zelensky is definitely not going to stand up and say he felt intimidated by Trump. And this Scalise knows that. It's a matter of how far you can get by lying. It's a matter of, how far can they take this matter? This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.